Alright, let's try this jam session arcade.
Wow, this is a shocker. I've never thought to see this game before. This is Jam Live Music Arcade, a game recently released on May 16, 2012. Now, this whole game was kind of a bit of a stir, and I've known about it for a while now. I never thought it would expect to be something like this, and then the outturn. Now, basically, this game was supposed to add a little bit more of a DJ Misk style without the DJ hero per se, but allow you to use the control styles of a guitar from Rock Band. Because obviously we won't be seeing a Rock Band 4 for the longest time now, don't you think?
Now, the controller for Jam Session Arcade is a little weird. If you ever played Guitar Hero 3 on the Xbox, you would understand how it works. A, B, X, Y, and the R button correspond with that. The triggers are being the whammy bar. So basically how it works in the game is like this.
There are 5 different bank sets with 5 selection of tones between each bank set allowed in each section. Most of the basics is between drums, bass, keys, vocals, or synths. And it varies between song to song, between electronic or hip-hop or trance or whatever type of music that's in this game. Now how the control scheme works is that if you hold A, it lights up whatever is corresponding to what is highlighted. Right now we have drums highlighted for this track. Now when you press A and then you press down, you activate the track. Now there's a little bar that spins around if you can notice that. That represents the timer of how long the sound effect is affecting before it repeats itself. It loops, basically. Now you can keep this thing going by either holding A and B and pressing down again. To switch different banks, you hold B, Y, A, X, or whatever the corresponding colors is, and press up to select that. You can select multiple bank tracks and activate the same thing in the same order. It's a little confusing at first, and for some major music enthusiasts, this can be very frustrating when you want to try and turn off and activate something at the same time. You cannot do that, which is kind of disappointing, but the game itself is still pretty fun regardless.
Now with this game, you can have 2 choices of control styles. And for something that's like Jam Session, you would think they would come up with their own control style. Instead, they did something different. You can either choose with a controller or a guitar.
This game has 2 modes, Jam and Arcade. Jam is basically a standard session where you're given a piece, you have different tracks, different setups, whatever, and you just play the way you want to. The game is infinite, so the score does not really matter, but it's still fun overall. There are 32 tracks to look at, most of them between standard to express, some either having the standard setup, some of them having multiple bank sets, or even looping options. Some of the songs are a little bit more express, and a lot of it is just doesn't feel like it needs to be there. But besides, the set list of how the musics are done is pretty nice, especially since a lot of selections may be unfamiliar to most people.
Now, Jam System is pretty fun to do. You can mess around. It's a little free-form game, and there's no limit to what you can do. So the point system is no point. Once you hit the gold star, it just doesn't matter just to get that achievement after all. Arcade mode is actually where it's at.
Now, as for the arcade portion, this is where I think is the meat and potatoes for this game. Now, the arcade mode acts and feels like basically any Guitar Hero, DJ Hero, rhythm game that's around there. Basically, you follow the corresponding based on the predetermined sets. Now, how this works is a little different to most games that people are familiar with. Now, with Jam Live Music Arcade, this mode is kind of odd. Now, when you load up the song you want, it doesn't instantly start. It's not like Rock Band or Guitar Hero where the song starts. The game actually starts when you're ready. You have to correspond what button you need to do in the bank set to start it off. Now, this may seem a little bit fun, and it is fun at times, but it's very frustrating and very hard because you have to correspond in 2 different ways. This is how.
Now, if you thought the controller was really hard to use in some cases, maybe you should figure out how the guitar works. Now, the guitar works almost the same thing as the controller, so obviously if you play Guitar Hero, it's the same way. The problem is, it's just timing things right when you're playing arcade mode. Because many times you have to hold a button and then press up to select it. And then you have to go to corresponding buttons like this, and then press down to activate it. Most of the time that can be a hard combination for a normal person, and I'm not trying to say it to be rude, but it's a little frustrating at some point, especially the combinations when you have to fresh bank things using the freaking whammy bar. Is it easy? Kind of, but it's almost the same thing as using the controller. At least for the buttons are a little bit more easy to access than it is the controller. Stuff like the green, yellow, and red and blue, those combinations are having a controller. Those things have to be in little patterns. So obviously either control styles, it's really hard to try and play the game in the first place.
Now, besides those minor complaints, Jamline Music Arcade is still a pretty interesting game for $10. For 32 tracks, 2 different game types, it actually has a lot of fun to actually go around. As for multiplayer, sadly, there is no multiplayer. I can understand why it doesn't even need to be allowed, but still, they could have at least added something based off the arcade mode, since the arcade mode plays out almost exactly like Guitar Hero in a different way. Now, Jamline Music Arcade may have a few lasting appeals. Really, I think the only lasting appeal is from the jam session mode. This at least has an infinity span of time and at least an infinite mode based on what it is. Arcade mode is almost like a Guitar Hero. Sure, you can go back and memorize and try to get a high score, but this game has a little system that trying to get the high score is almost really tough. It's not like Rock Band because of its whammy bar and its special selections, where actually trying to get a high score is different, and having the combinations of the drum or the bass and whatever makes the score even higher for the leaderboards. With the arcade mode with this, if you get 100% accuracy and everything all together, you pretty much hit the max score you can with this stuff. It's a little disappointing, but it's what they can do.
For my last comment, Jamline Music Arcade is okay for a $10 price point. It does have a little things lacking, and the control styles can be very frustrating between controller and guitar, but it doesn't matter. For $10, it has 32 tracks, it has the ability to do almost 25, 50, or even 75 bank sets that you can mimic and do whatever you want. You can also record majority of it to play in arcade mode, but besides that, it's a kind of a tack-on situation. You can't import or export your own things, so it's kind of a little lackluster on a few things there. But they do plan to do ELC, so I wonder what they can do from there.
Now, if I were to score Jamline Music Arcade, I don't know where to start on the scoring meter with this one. Because it's a rhythm game, it's really hard to judge on a lot of factors, normally when it comes to first-person shooter or action arcade games, or even racing games in general. But because this is a rhythm game, it's very limited on what you can grade it by. But if I want to try and base it on something that I remember based on the arcade games, like Guitar Freaks and Drum Mania, I would have to give it a 7 out of 10. It's very meh, and I would say I recommend it for anyone who wants to pick up a game that's based on like this. It's fun and it has a few lasting appeals like I said before, but other than that, it may not appeal to a lot of people on a current state. $10 may seem a lot to others, but if you feel like it's worth it, I definitely recommend to put it down. That's just my opinion and that's just what I think about it. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much.